Hello everyone, welcome back. We are going to be going over an in-depth guide on the best perk for every single killer. But if you don't know me, I am Shibi. I play DBD at the highest level, being competitive almost every single day, and have competed in some tourneys. Now, let's just get started. The Trapper. Trapper is going to come with Brutal Strength. These are his perks. Now, why did I choose Brutal Strength? Brutal Strength is really good at being an anti-chase perk, meaning killers who really struggle with chase can use Brutal Strength and really be able to catch up and deal with those chases just a bit better. Next is Wraith. Now, I think this killer has no good perks. Predator is actually more or less just a debuff to you, right? Because you're so used to seeing scratch marks the way they are, when they're considerably closer together, you can usually lose a survivor. Now, that's said by most people, so I'm just kind of copy and pasting that, but for the most part, that is true. Bloodhound isn't as terrible as Predator, but it is still really bad. What it does is fresh blood marks are considerably more discernible than normal, so basically what the Victor does, and can be tracked for 4 seconds longer. Now, that isn't awful. It is pretty bad, though, and Shadowborn, while not being good, it is used on a lot of players, and especially people who have bad motion sickness. You can usually use Shadowborn and be quite okay. And I know people who actually have, like, held the check spot because of Shadowborn. I'm not saying it's good, but it is just the better of his 3 perks and does see more consistent play all around. Billy. There's a much to be said about Billy. The only one that could come close is Enduring, where they're 50% less duration of pallet stuns, but I mean, it's more or less niche. You don't want to really be getting stunned by pallets anyway, and well, Lightborn's not good. It's actually more of a hindrance than anything, and it's actually making you worse at the game. Please stop running Lightborn. Tinker. Whenever a generator is repaired to 70% progress, it triggers a loud notification, and you are granted the undetectable status effect for the next 16 seconds. This effect can only be triggered once on a generator. This perk used to be extremely strong, being able to be triggered more than once. So you'd run Pop and this, and you'd be constantly getting Tinkerer. Now it's only once, but it is still pretty solid on a few characters here and there. It's not as used to be strong, but it is still pretty strong. Nurse is going to be a Nurse's Calling. Now, Thanatophobia has gotten a lot of nerfs, and especially the most recent one, reworking it to basically be completely useless. There is one killer that I think this is really good on. No, it is not Plague or Legion. Not covering that right now. But then she also has Strider, which isn't bad, but it is not the greatest. If you play this game long enough, you're gonna know breathing sounds. You actually might be a little bit of hindrance because you're listening. You're gonna be trying to force yourself to listen a bit harder, and then you won't actually find anyone because you're listening too much. It is good on Spirit though if you're learning Spirit, so maybe try it there. But other than that, Nurse's Calling is almost always better and really good. Now, the Huntress has 0 good perks at all. All these perks are really bad. Terrible or imperative. Unlocks potential in one's aura reading ability. Survivors' auras are revealed to you for 6 seconds when they enter the basement and you are more than 24 meters away from the basement entrance. And then it has a cooldown. Beast of Prey grants the undetectable status effect after gaining Bloodlust Tier 1. The stat effect is removed once you lose Bloodlust, and then you obviously gain more blood points. Now this is actually more of a hindrance than anything, because people now know when you are bloodlusting, meaning they can now just pre-drop pallets, forcing you to break, and then you lose Bloodlust. GG. Well, the Biome is the only one that can really be used, but against good survivors, they're not going to care, and they're just going to do the gens anyway. Now, the survivors receive a 6% regression penalty isn't too awful, but the entire perk as a total, being a Hex, is bad. If this wasn't Hex, it wouldn't be as bad, but then lower tier players would get bullied a lot. Myers obviously goes to save the best for last, but Play with your food is not a bad perk. This is actually a pretty solid perk. You become obsessed with one survivor every time you chase your obsession and let them escape. You receive a token up to a maximum of 3 tokens. Each token increases your movement speed by 5%. Performing a basic attack or special attack spends 1 token. It's actually really good. Makes you extremely fast, being able to make chases pretty quick, being able to get that first hit. But ultimately, save the best for last is just better. It gives us someone killers a lot more way to deal with chases, being able to get downs. Just gives you an overall better play as M1. Dying Light, if you want to know what it does, your obsession gains a 33% action speed bonus to unhooking and healing other survivors. Each time you hook a survivor other than the obsession, if the obsession is alive, gain a token. If the obsession is alive, all survivors who are not obsession get 3% penalty to repair, healing, and sabotaging speeds for each token. Not the best, because your obsession literally gains a buff, and quite a substantial one at that. Onto the Hag. It's really just Devour Hope. The third seal isn't bad by any means. It's actually a pretty solid perk, and I actually recommend running this if you're running, you know, solid hex build. But usually you don't want to really run the third seal over a lot of different things. And then Ruin is not a good perk anymore, unfortunately. It has its niche uses, but overall it just doesn't do anything, because when somebody is killed, it's deactivated. You don't have Ruin the rest of the game, meaning if you don't have that much pressure anyway, and you have to spread hooks a bit, or you have to tunnel someone out, it's going to be gone quite fast, and then you're going to get no value from Ruin. Now, if you're able to spread hooks a bit, maybe you could get value, but then you're just forcing yourself not to kill anybody, and then you're also not getting any pressure because you're actively not killing anyone. Devour is a pretty strong perk. If you don't know what the perk does, when a survivor is rescued from a hook at least 24 meters away, Devour Hope gains a token. At 2 tokens, gain a 5% haste status effect for 10 seconds after hooking a survivor for a duration of 10 seconds. 3 tokens, survivors suffer from the exposed status effect, and at 5 tokens, grants the ability to kill survivors by your own hand. And the hex obviously persists the entire time the hex totem is up. And obviously it's a hex totem, it's not going to be the best, but it is still probably one of the, if not contended, the best hex perk in the game. It gives you a really strong mid-game power spike. On top of, if you're able to get to 5 tokens, you can instantly kill anyone. The same as Myers' Tombstone, for example. Moving on to the Doctor. It's going to go to Overcharge. And Monitor and a Beast is not a bad perk. It's actually pretty solid. Also increasing your field of view by 10 degrees, just like Shadowborn. But also, while you're in chase, your terror radius is increased by 8 meters. Otherwise, your terror radius is decreased by 8 meters. Meaning, there's always going to be a difference of 16... there's a difference between 16 meters of terror radius with this perk. So it's not that bad. But it's not really the best. So, it's only really good on, terror radius builds, in my opinion. Unless you're running, stealth. Overwhelming Presence is just a really bad perk. Survivors within your terror radius suffer from inefficiency. Affected survivors' item consumption rates are increased by 100%, and you never really know when this perk is working. So it's really, it's super niche, and even when it's niche, it's not even that good. And Overcharge is still a pretty good kick perk. After Overcharge is applied to a generator, its regression speed increases from 85% of normal to 130% of normal over the next 30 seconds. Now, obviously, if it persists over time, it's good. If it's instantly touched, it's actually not good. Because instead of regressing at a 100% speed for that time that you kicked it, it's now regressing for only 85%, and then obviously scaling up, meaning it's probably not going to hit that 100% mark, especially if they're hiding around the generator. If you run something like Nowhere to Hide, then it's not as bad to use it, but Overcharge isn't the best anymore, especially since the huge nerf it got. Bubba is going to Barbecue and Chili. Now, these other 2 perks are really niche. Knockout isn't as bad. We'll cover Knockout real quick. Survivors put into the dying state by your basic attacks are not revealed to other survivors when they are standing outside of a 60-meter range. Survivors put in the dying state by your basic attack crawl 50% slower for 15 seconds, and the recovery speed is reduced by 25%. During this time, survivors are affected by the blindness status effect, and it's going to be really hard to find this dying survivor, meaning in a slug build, it can work quite well. Franklin's, your basic attacks make survivors drop their item on impact. While on the ground, it takes up to 90 seconds for the item to lose all of its charges if it is not picked up. Reveal items on the ground within 32 meters with a white aura. The aura will slowly fade to red until the item is empty of charges. Not that good. The only good thing it is maybe countering toolboxes and maybe flashlights if you're like that. But for the most part, just kind of toolboxes. And it's not that bad against toolboxes. It really makes people have to go pick it up, especially if it's a good toolbox. And if you're really worried about being gen rushed, you can use this. But it isn't that good of a perk. Now, barbecue. After hooking your survivor, all other survivors' auras are revealed to you for 5 seconds when they are further than 40 meters from the hook, which is really, really good if you're playing a high mobility character and you can get to the other survivors pretty quickly. Freddy Krueger. Now, I had a bit of a hard time picking his perks because Fire Up relies on you losing to get good value. And Blood Warden is really niche for the end game when the hooks or when the gates are open. Good survivors, if they see you have other good perks for end game, they're just going to leave that other survivor to avoid Blood Warden. Even if they don't know you have it, it's just a good precautionary to have. And the only time you're really going to get value is if you're able to slug near the gate and then put them on the hook while everybody's at the gate and then you kill them at the gate. That's really the only niche scenario it's good in. Now remember me, each time your obsession loses a health state, gain 1 token, up to 4. Each token increases the opening time of the exit gates by 6 seconds up to a maximum of 24 additional seconds. The obsession is not affected by Remember Me. Now the reason this perk is not great is because the obsession is not affected by Remember Me, meaning the obsession can go and do the gates for everybody else while they just kind of chillax. Now, it depends. If the obsession does get killed, this perk still is active, meaning everybody else will have a 24 additional second opening gate speed. Now, opening gates takes 20 seconds, meaning this perk will make it take 44 seconds, which is quite crazy. And that's not the best, but it does have its niche uses, especially if you're running an end-game build. On to the pig. Now, she doesn't have the best of perks. Surveillance is probably her best. You can maybe get away with going Make Your Choice. We'll cover both of them right here. Unlocks potential in one's aura reading ability. Any regressing generator will be highlighted by a white aura. If the regressing is interrupted on a generator, it will be highlighted by a yellow aura for 16 seconds. Noises created by generator repairs are audible at an additional 8 meters. And that's actually pretty good, especially if you're running stuff like Pain Res, even if you still run a room and it's not that bad. But usually if you're running Pain Res, so you know where to go next, especially if you have no LOS of the Pain Res rune, or Pain Res gen. And also being able to hear generator sounds a bit further away can actually be quite helpful. Now make your choice. When a survivor rescues another from a hook at least 32 meters away from you, make your choice that causes the survivor to scream and applies the exposed status effect to them for 60 seconds. Make your choice as a cooldown of 60 seconds. Now, this definitely isn't bad if you're running something like Devour, too. But most of the time, you're going to be around 32 meters of the hook, especially if you're playing an M1 killer. But if you're not, then this perk can actually be pretty good, especially if you can end up finding the person who unhooked. The only bad thing is that person who unhooked can usually just run away, and you won't be able to find them without an aura reading perk. If you really want to know what this perk does, it is god-awful. Gain a notification when a survivor begins sabotaging a hook. While carrying a survivor, see the aura of any survivor within 12 meters of a skirt check. It is completely awful and absolutely trash. If you're running this perk alone, you're honestly probably just trolling, which is up to you, but this perk is completely bad and awful, and probably one of the worst perks in the entire game. The Clown. Now, I had a little bit of trouble with this, because while Pop does seem like the clear winner of the best perk for him, a lot of killers use Bamboozle. Your vault speed is 15% faster. Performing a vault action calls upon the entity to block that vault location for 16 seconds. Only one vault location can be blocked in this way at any time. And obviously the vault location is blocked only for survivors, does not affect pallets. A lot of killers use this perk, which is why it's really, really good. It's a really good anti-chase perk if you're not running Brutal Strength, and a lot of killers actually prefer Bamboozle over Brutal Strength. The reason Pop goes to the #1 spot for me on this killer is because after hooking a survivor, the next generator you damage instantly loses 30% of its current progress, and this will be active for 45 seconds after you hook a survivor. Most killers can use this perk, and most of the time you're going to be hooking around a gen, I'd have to guess. If you're not, then I guess you're just in a losing situation anyway, and maybe you should be running Bam in that situation, but who knows. Most of the time you're going to be getting a lot of value out of Pop. It's really, really strong, getting 30% of its current progress, especially if that generator is almost done. You're going to get a lot of progress just gone instantly. Spirits, I'm going to have to give it to Rancor. Now, people might be wondering if it's Spirit Fury. I mean, it can be, but it's really niche. Spirit Fury is probably her worst perk. You really have to make an entire build around Spirit Fury just for it to work. Other than that, you're not going to be really getting any value besides, okay, break the pallet. They're still making the exact same distance. Haunted Grounds is actually a pretty solid perk, and I'd have to say these are probably tied. When either one of the two trapped hex totems is cleansed by a survivor, all survivors suffer from the exposed status effect for 60 seconds. The remaining trapped hex totem immediately becomes a dull totem. Now, why do I think Rancor is better than Haunted Grounds? Rancor is a really strong endgame perk, and you will almost always know where the obsession is. So, each time a generator is completed, your obsession sees your aura for 3 seconds. Each time a generator is completed, all survivors' locations are revealed to you for 3 seconds. Once the exit gates are powered, the obsession has the exposed status effect and you can kill them. Meaning, it's a mini bitter memory. You'll always know where survivors are if the generator is completed. The bad part is they will see you. The obsession will see you. Meaning, if they're good, they can just call this perk immediately, especially if they're in a Swift. But you can kill the obsession instantly when exit gates are powered. Meaning, if you're not in a Swift, you can usually catch them off guard. But it does have a downside of they just take hits for them, and, well, you can't really do anything anymore. But I do still think this is a better perk than Haunted Grounds, because if survivors see 2, and they're smart enough to call it out, they usually just won't cleanse, especially if they see you don't have another Hex perk. Onto the Legion, I think this is going, obviously, to Discordance. Any generator within a range of 128 meters that is being repaired by 2 or more survivors is marked by a yellow aura. When the generator is first highlighted, Discordance triggers a loud noise notification on the generator. After the generator is no longer within range or is no longer being repaired by 2 or more survivors, the aura remains for another 4 seconds. This gives you a lot of valuable information. Just running around, being able to know where 2 people or 3 people, if they're trolling 4 people, or at one time, then, well, there you go. Iron Maiden doesn't really do anything. You open lockers 50% faster than people who leave lockers when they go in them are exposed for 30 seconds, revealing their location for 4 seconds. And Mad Grit is just a carry perk. When you carry somebody, you suffer no cooldown from missed basic attacks, and when you hit a basic attack on somebody, you will pause the wiggle timer for 4 seconds, neither of which are good perks. Plague obviously goes to Corrupt Intervention. Probably the single best slowdown perk in the entire game besides Pain Res. At the beginning of the game, the 3 generators located furthest from you are blocked by the entity for 120 seconds or 2 minutes. Corrupt Intervention deactivates when any survivor enters the dying state, meaning you will be guaranteed always a free slowdown at the beginning of the game of the 3 furthest generators. Meaning if you have a really good spawn, you can actually slow down the game quite a lot. And even on a killer like Plague, you can usually hold the 4 gen for the entire 2 minutes. Meaning they can't really get any progress, meaning they're going to have to wait out Corrupt. Meaning 2 minutes is a long time to start a chase almost instantly. And these other 2 perks aren't the worst. Dark Devotion, more or less, is just a troll perk. It just transfers your terror radius to somebody, to the obsession when you hit them. And Infectious Fright is actually not bad. And when you put a survivor in the dying state, all survivors in your terror radius will scream, revealing their location to you for 6 seconds. And it's not awful, but most killers don't really use it that well. Ghostface is going to the Thrilling Tremors. I had to choose between Amoliers and Thrilling Tremors. Ultimately, give it to Thrilling Tremors. It's a pretty good slowdown perk. You'll know where to go right after being unhooked, or being hooked, not unhooked, your killer. And you'll know exactly where survivors are, what gens they're going to be on, etc. You're going to know where not to go, where to go. I mean, they're just really good on certain killers. After somebody vaults, their Oreo will be revealed to you for 6 seconds, and then it has a 40-second cooldown. Next is the Demogorgon. Now, you're going to Mindbreaker over Surge. The reason I did this is because Surge is completely outclassed right now by Painters, Pop, Deadlock. You're almost always going to have, you are probably going to have Painters in your build. And if you don't, you're going to have Pop. And usually if you have Pop, you're going to have Deadlock. Now, even if you have Painters, you're probably going to have Deadlock. And if you don't have either, or any three, you're probably trolling using a different build. That's your choice, that's fine. But at least with Mindbreaker, you have room and a build to throw Mindbreaker on for a bit of slowdown / being able to catch them off guard. When they're working on a gen, they'll be afflicted by blindness and exhausted, meaning they cannot gain their exhaustion back while working on a generator. Also meaning when you go to that gen, they can't use sprint burst off of it, they can't use life off of it if you are chasing them and they don't walk for at least 5 seconds. Cool Limits is not a bad perk either. Every time a generator is completed, all windows and vault locations are blocked for all survivors for the next 30 seconds. Which isn't bad. It's definitely pretty good. You see the aura of the vault locations blocked by Cruel Limits. So it's definitely really good for anti-chase, but it isn't the best requiring generators to be completed. This one just requires them to work on generators, the main source of getting out of the match. Now again, Surge is not a bad perk by any means. It's probably one of the best slowdown perks for M1s. The only thing is it has 3 perks that work just as well on M1s that just severely outclass it. That's it. If you're wanting to not run Pop though, I'd probably run Surge on most killers that don't use special attacks to down mostly. Oni is kind of hard just because he doesn't have that many good perks. I mean, he has Blood Echo, which is probably his strongest perk in my opinion. When hooking a survivor, all other injured survivors suffer from the hemorrhage and exhausted status effect for 45 seconds, and then it goes on cooldown for 60 seconds. Nemesis, a survivor who blinds you or stuns you using a pallet or locker, becomes your obsession. Anytime a new survivor becomes the obsession, they're afflicted with the Oblivious status effect for 60 seconds, and their aura is shown to you for 4 seconds. Instead, tactics is just windows of opportunity, but for killers. I think Blood Echo is the best just because it does give you quite a bit of slowdown, applying hemorrhage and exhausted for 45 seconds, meaning it's going to be higher than just a normal exhaustion cooldown. And if it's almost done, then it's going to immediately reset to back to 45, also causing hemorrhage, meaning heals are going to take quite a bit longer if you're able to get over there. Now, for Slinger, go pull it up. It's gonna go to Deadman Switch. Deadman Switch is also one of the best slowdown perks in the game right now, just because of Ultimate Weapon Painres. You run Ultimate Weapon Painres with DMS, you basically can block every single gen that a survivor is working on, because you just run around Ultimate Weaponing them off gens, and then if they don't know that you're Painresing, then they're gonna get Painres off into DMS. That's it. That's all that has to be said. Executioner. He doesn't have that many good perks. He doesn't have any good perks in my opinion. But he does have some mediocre perks. Trial of Torment. At the generator, you become undetectable until the generator stops progressing. During this time, the generator's aura is revealed to you survivors. This effect can only be triggered once every 60 seconds. That's not a bad perk. It's actually pretty good if you're playing a kick perk or kick build. You're always going to know where somebody is or if this gen is being worked on, but they will also know that you just kicked that gen. Force Panic survivors who take a protection hit are inflicted with a broken status effect for 80 seconds. Now, this isn't a bad perk, especially if you're playing certain killers that people might want to take protection hits more so for, such as Twins, maybe even Executioner himself. Now, there are a lot of other killers on the roster that might want to take protection hits that are going to be free outs, they think. And then this just gives them that broken status effect, and now they have to deal with being broken for a long, long time. The Blight. This is obviously going to Undying. Blood Favor isn't that bad. Injuring a survivor will call upon the entity to block pallets from being pulled down for within a 30-meter radius of the survivor vault location, or survivor location for 15 seconds. Now, of course, this is just a hex perk, and it's only 15 seconds. It usually can result in a down, but most of the time they can usually just go to a window and loop a window for that 15 seconds, so then they have pallets back up. Dragon's Grip also isn't that bad. After damaging a generator for the next 30 seconds, the first survivor that interacts with it will scream, revealing their location for 4 seconds and afflicting wicks with the exposed status effect for 60 seconds. Dragon's Grip has a cooldown of 80 seconds, meaning if you're running a gen kicking build, probably want to pair with Trail of Torments and Dragon's Grip, and you can usually catch a survivor off guard with Dragon's Grip being able to just down them. But Undying usually is just almost always is just a better perk. The Twins, I'm giving it to Coup de Grace over Oppression because Oppression is not good. It's a mid-tier perk and then also has an 80-second cooldown. It just almost makes it effectively useless most of the match because you have to really time it right. I mean, you're not going to be kicking gens a lot because you're going to be wanting to wait for that cooldown. But then if you don't wait, then you basically have a useless perk. And then Coup, each time a generator is completed, Coup de Grace Empower. Gain 2 tokens with a maximum of 5 tokens maximum. Consume 1 token to increase the distance of your next lunge attack by 80%. Now this actually isn't bad, and it is quite a bit of range and will get you a lot of hits you did not think you were going to get. And it's definitely not a bad perk. You can use it, but it's probably not like one of the best. Obviously it's not one of the best. For Trickster, on the other hand, he has probably one of the best late-game perks, No Way Out. After hooking a survivor for the first time, No Way Out gains a token once the exit gates have been powered. No Way Out activates. When a survivor interacts with an exit gate switch, you receive a loud notification. The entity then blocks both exit gate switches for 12 seconds. Plus an additional 12 seconds for each token in your possession for a maximum of 60 seconds. This is a really strong perk for endgame and causes a lot of panic and slowdown, and usually can result in you getting a 1k if you're just really struggling that bad. If you're not, then it'll just slow down the endgame even more, usually just result in you getting whatever kill you're going for. Nemesis, this is going to Lethal Pursuer. Hello, Nemesis. At the start of the trial, the auras of all survivors are revealed to you for 9 seconds. Anytime a survivor aura is shown for a period of time, its duration is increased by 2 seconds. Meaning if you're running any type of aura, which are pretty good perks, but there's some good perks, it'll be increased by 2 seconds on top of being able to know where everybody is at the beginning of the trial. And if you don't see somebody, they obviously have distortion, and now you just know one of their perks for completely free. Meaning you will always have value out of this perk, unless you just aren't running any aura perks, then that's fine. It's still a really strong perk. Eruption is also really close. Whenever survivors enter the dying state, every affected generator explodes, losing 10% worth of progress and starts to regress. And any survivor on these generators will scream and reveal their aura for 12 seconds, and then has a 30-second cooldown. It's really strong slowdown, provides slowdown across the whole map, especially if you're kicking a lot of gens. Hysteria is just bad. Don't run it. I'm not even going to explain it. For xeno, it's obviously Deadlock, one of the best slowdown perks in the entire game besides Pain Res. After the generator is repaired, the entity blocks the generator with the most progress for 30 seconds. You see that it's white aura during this time. It's passive slowdown. It slows down the next progress gen, which is massively huge. And then also, you also know where the survivors are going to be as soon as it goes down. Meaning, once it's going down with about 5 seconds, I should probably get over there and find people to down, because they're going to be around there. These are the 2 perks on bad, cause slowdown, and it's more of a jump scare perk, but definitely isn't a better perk. Hexblade thing is pretty solid, actually, especially with Pentamento. On to the artist now. Can I spell? That's the question again. She has the single best slowdown perk in the entire game by quite a bit of large margin. At the start of the trial, up to 4 random hooks are changed into Scourge hooks. Use either white or as in the white. You start the trial with 4 tokens. The first time each survivor is hooked on a Scourge hook, lose 1 token, and the generator with the most progress explodes, instantly losing 25 progress, and will start to regress. Once you have no tokens, Pinhead will deactivate for the rest of the trial. Now you might think, oh, well, 4 tokens, and then it regresses for the rest of the trial, or deactivates for the rest of the trial. It's not bad. 25% is crazy, plus when paired to DMS and the ultimate weapon on some killers, you can literally block all generators that they're working on almost 24/7 after you get a hook, on top of being able to regress 25% total progress on the generator. It is completely insane, and activates as soon as basically you press spacebar on the hook, meaning you don't have to wait until they're fully hooked and the animation is done. You just have to press space and it is active as soon as they physically touch the hook, meaning it's instant. If you're at like 98%, they press space, they're going to get it off before you get it done, because, well, the animation to press space onto hitting them on the hook, and that generator going from 98 to 100 is less. This perk is really strong. Her other 2 perks are Pentamento, which is just a hex perk that slows them down if they cleanse dull totems or hex totems. You have to go activate this perk. Killer Embrace just blocks generators for 40 seconds when you hook 4 different people. Now, the Oreo. Can I spell? Yes. Now, there's a bit of a tie here between Floods of Rage and Colorblind. Now, Colorblind had a huge nerf, but I still think it's really good if you're running more of a slowdown build or like actively kicking gens, because other than Overcharge, or compared to Overcharge, you will get the consistent value from this perk, regressing at 125%, rather than having to ramp up that speed. Not only lasts for 60 seconds, but you will know if they go back on the gen, because when they complete a skill check, you will get a loud notification knowing to go back over there and check on the gen. Floods of Rage. At the start of the trial, you get 4 Scourge hooks. When a survivor is unhooked from a Scourge hook, all other survivors have their auras revealed for 7 seconds. Now, this is really strong, but usually you don't have room in a build to run another Scourge hook. It's usually just Pain Res, another slowdown, and either an endgame perk, or honestly, probably another slowdown or sloppy if you're running like M1 or ultimate weapon. And then obviously you're going to have growth in that build. So it's usually not able to be fit in a build. You can usually fit Colorblind in a build if you want another slowdown perk that isn't Pop or Deadlock, because other than those 2, there's not too many that you're going to be running. So it's still not that bad. And the Merciless Storm is Merciless Storm. Don't run this perk, please. Please don't. I'm not even going to explain it. Okay, now the Dredge is another killer that I think has a pretty good time. Now it's really, really, really dependent. Darkness Revealed is really good on maps that have a lot of lockers that are close proximity to each other, where if you open a locker, you're not going to see mostly everybody. But on some maps where there's not a lot of lockers around the map, or like close to each other, or close to gens, it's not going to be as good. And then the Dissolution is where that comes in, where 3 seconds after injuring a survivor, all pallets, after they vault for 20 seconds, will break instantly, meaning you can just go through it, or swing through it, or whatever. And this is going to be really good on those maps that don't have a lot of lockers, because most of the time, those are big maps, or like at least really open maps, and they're going to have a lot of filler pallets, meaning Dissolution is actually going to be really strong. So it's basically just what map are you playing on, if you know what you're playing on, whether you're doing a comp match, or whether you're not going to be running this comp match. But if you're running like KIF, or over just normal games, you're going to want to know what map you're going to, whether you're bringing an offering or you're just playing KIF, and then you'll want to run either Dissolution or Darkness based on the map. If you're not, then I'd probably just go with Dissolution most of the time if you're taking yes, but Darkness can be good on some killers. Wesker, or the Mastermind. Most of his perks aren't that great, so Awaken Awareness, it does help a lot. If you're looking around a lot while hooking, if you're running like an Agi Star Shark build. Spirit Anatomy is just the best in my opinion. Makes your next vault 40% faster after you like when a survivor performs a fast vault within 8 meters of you, your next vault will be 40% faster, going on cooldown as soon as you use it for 30 seconds. It's really good, especially if you're able to catch a survivor off guard, or if you're running Bambi with it. Terminus is basically a permanent no-ed, in a way, until the exit gates are open. Once exit gates are open, it goes away, basically. It isn't bad, but if people are healed, then they're not going to be affected by this until they get hit. Then they will be affected by it. By the time they get hit, though, they're probably going to have the exit gates open and Russ running an entire build around it, which usually isn't that good to run an entire endgame build. But it is not bad. The next is the Knight. I want to say the Knight's best perk is Nowhere to Hide. This is actually a pretty strong perk, allowing you to see auras within 24 meters of you for 5 seconds after kicking a gen. This is a really strong perk for just finding survivors after kicking a gen. Hubris makes survivors exposed for 20 seconds after shooting you with a pellet, and then has a cooldown, but it's in the same timer, so as soon as it comes off cooldown, they lose the exposed status effect. Then Hex, Face the Darkness. While the Hex is active, all other survivors outside of your entire radius will scream every 25 seconds, revealing their position and auras for 2 seconds. And this activates if they're injuring a survivor. The Skull Merchant, my main, is going to Game Afoot. Now these other two perks, Leverage and Thwack, I actually really like Leverage, but it is very niche, and you usually have to be getting a lot of hooks early to be getting a lot of value from this. When you do get a lot of hooks early, this perk is really strong because you're going to have almost a 50% slowdown on heals. Well, it's more or less when you get up to 10, so having that 35% to 30% slower heals, especially if you're running sloppy too, I mean, you're going to be getting around a 55% slower heal around that 7 to 6 hook mark. It's really strong if you're able to get those hooks while they're healing too, activating and guaranteeing value from this perk, but it isn't the best. Thwack is basically just a worse ultimate weapon. I'm not really going to cover it. And the Game Afoot is probably her best perk, and actually not a bad perk. While you're chasing the obsession, the perk activates. Damaging a generator or breaking walls or pallets gives you a 5% haste for 10 seconds. Now this activates while you are chasing the obsession. Whenever you hit a basic attack, whenever you hit the survivor with the total most time in a chase with a basic attack, they become the obsession. Meaning if you start chasing somebody and they're not the obsession, and you hit them, they'll become the obsession. You kick a pallet while in chase, you're going to get them down quite quickly because you have 5% haste. It's actually a pretty solid chase perk, and able to switch the obsession quite quickly. Singularity. Sorry I'm talking so fast. I just don't want to make this video too long. It's already really long, so I'm just trying to get it quickened, I guess. When a survivor is put into the dying state by any means, also the survivor is standing within a 16-meter range around them, so have the hindered status effect for 10 seconds, reducing their movement speed by 20%. This is really strong if you're playing a killer that can slug really well. Or in total, if people are just running flashlights, flashbangs, etc., you can just catch them off guard by running force agitation. They're going to get really scared and panic. Then usually you can either get a hit or another down by using this perk. Genetic equivalence is also pretty strong. Next up is Xenomorph. We probably have one of the, if not the best, location revealing perks in the game. When you open a locker, this perk activates for 30 seconds. Survivors entering your terror radius scream, reveal their aura position, and gain blindness for 30 seconds. This perk goes on cooldown for 30 seconds. Yes, it does go on cooldown after the time is up, meaning it has a total of 60 seconds before you can use the next ultimate weapon. But it does not get countered by distortion, meaning survivors either have to run calm spirits or they will always be getting hit by ultimate weapon. It is a really strong perk, especially on killers who can just run around the map, activating this with DMS like Nurse, Blight, Hillbilly, Demo, Oni, etc. I also used it on Plague with DMS. It is extremely strong. It's probably one of the best perks in the entire game, besides Generous perks. The good guy, Chucky. Friends till the end. I think this is obvious. I did kind of cover this in my Is Chucky Worth It video. I'll go ahead and link it up on the top right. But batteries included isn't that great after the nerf. And 2 can play is really niche. Really niche. Especially since flashlights are disabled right now as of today, December 13th. You're not really going to be getting blinded. And then Friends Theme is actually pretty good on those high mobility characters that can really just go take advantage of this exposed status effect really quickly from Friends till the end. But that's going to do it for you guys today. I hope this video helped figuring out what killers you should probably level up to get the best perks in the game. My suggestions for you: if you want an early game perk, level up Plague. If you want Gen Regression, you're going to be wanting to level up Artist. If you're running a good Hex perk, probably want to go with Hag or Blight, because one has Devour and the other one has Undying, so I do one after the other. It really is up to you which one you want to do first, especially with whoever else you get leveled up to. If you also want a really good Chase perk, the Clown and the Trapper have the 2 best Chase perks in the game, running Bamboozle and Brutal Strength. If you want higher FOV, go with Wraith. Other than that, guys, I don't think there's anything else to cover. If you have any questions, comment down below. I'll be able to answer them. Again, I play at the highest level of DBD that you can, and I'm just here to help you guys out, get either into the game or get the higher level of play. If you guys want any tips or tricks, let me know. If you have any video suggestions, let me know also in the comments below. And if you like content like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will always see you guys in the next one. Peace out.